Hi, I'm Cameron. I interviewed my mom.
Hi, I'm Maddie and I interviewed Mrs. Zika.
I'm Maddie. I interviewed Tyler Combs.
I'm Jack and I interviewed my grandpa.
We explored different parenting styles and how different generations and ethnicities, like how it shaped their childhood. So we explored that and just how their ethnicity and religion affected it.
In my early childhood, I went to all-boy public school. We did not have electricity till later on. So the food was prepared daily. We bought even bread every day, so it was fresh. We moved almost 5-6 times because my father was a constructor, and so we lived in a house until it was sold. Then we moved to new one. By the time I was in high school, then we had electricity. I got into a straight medical school. Most family allowed the girl only finish primary school, but later time they were educated like boys. I did not feel different from other culture because everyone was the same, and that's all I knew. Our transportation was bus, not camel. We didn't have television at the time, but we had radio. So most of the show or news, we listened to it through radio. Initially, when we had to shower, there was public shower outside of the house, but gradually every house had its own shower, toilet, and initially, because we didn't have electricity, so even the grocery shopping was done daily, especially produce or meat or chicken. Very interestingly, our school started at 8 o'clock until noon. Then the students were free for 2 hours, so most of them walked to their house, to their home, had lunch. Some of them took a nap and then go back to school at 2 o'clock until 4 p.m. Of course, in the university was a different schedule. There were areas or restaurants close to the university that you can buy your lunch. Clothing was pretty much the same as other culture because the women were dressed and in the summertime could wear a skirt, and the man had suit, or in the summertime short sleeve, but wearing short pants was not common. Mostly was a long pants. When I came to United States, it was very interestingly, the first city was Chicago. And when I was walking downtown Chicago, I noticed that all the women have different colored dress, and it was very colorful, which I didn't see it back in Iran.
All right, so I have to ask you a couple questions. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so my first question is, how would you describe like your childhood, like as a whole, and like a short?
It was awesome.
summary? It was awesome.
Yeah.
When were you, I guess, a child? Like an
I was born in 1961,
Okay.
and I graduated from high school in 1979.
All right. What were some values that your parents taught you?
Honesty, that family supports each other, that you treat everybody with kindness and respect, regardless of how they treat you and regardless of like how they present or if they're different than you. Education was a huge one. My mom had nothing growing up, and she was the first person in her family to graduate from high school, and so that was kind of her magic bullet, and so it was really important to my mom and dad.
All right. What were some values that you want to keep teaching to your children?
That you treat everybody with respect and kindness, and that education is really, really important, and that your family's always there for you.
Was religion a big part of your childhood, and if so, why was that, do you think?
It wasn't a big part of my childhood. We went to church, but it wasn't overwhelmingly important, and it was kind of awkward because I grew up outside Grand Rapids, and I grew up in a community that was very religious, and so in high school I was sort of the heathen.
Heathen.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I didn't go to Christian Reform or the Dutch Reformed Church.
All right. How did your parents ever discipline you at all? So they
Oh, yeah.
ever have to like, spank you?
Oh yeah.
or-
Oh, I got spanked. I got privileges taken away. Things like that.
All right. Did you discipline your children?
I did. My theory is that if you ground your kids, who are you punishing, you or the kid? Because you end up miserable. But yeah, my kids, we used a lot of privilege restrictions and things like that.
Who did you want to be before you had children?
My plan was, when I was in high school, was to be a buyer for Hudson's, which is now part of the Macy's chain, and travel the world and buy all kinds of high fashion stuff.
Okay. What's an important piece of advice you'd give to someone based on your experience as a parent?
That it is the most awesome thing you will ever do in your life, and it is more work than you can imagine. But it's, even on the worst days, it's the best thing I've ever done.
What was it like growing up in like a household, let's say you're like maybe 12, so it's maybe like 1970 something.
Uh-huh.
What was it like growing up back then?
It was, part of it is different because there was less immediacy. You know, like when I was 12, if something happened, you had to watch it on the news in the evening. We didn't have 24-hour news channels, and we didn't have a computer that brought us news in the palm of our hand all the time. So some of that was nice. Some of that little bit of delay was nice. There was also a lot less feeling of restriction or feeling of concern. I grew up in a time where my parents would send us outside to play, and you know, we came back at certain times for meals, and we could play outside after dinner until it got dark, and there wasn't a lot of concern about whether or not we were safe. So there's a lot more freedom, I think.
Okay. All right. And that's all I had to ask
Okay,
you. So
cool.
thank you so much for answering some of my
welcome.
questions.
Childhood, if so, why? Yes, it was. My dad used to be a pastor for a little while when we were kids. And he always taught us that no matter what, even if things weren't perfect, there was always a way to come back from it. And that, you know, without God and a belief in something, life can be quite difficult.
Are there any values that your parents taught you that you wouldn't want to teach your children? This could be good or bad. Or
Well, I would want to teach my children just to be more open-minded and not be afraid of change. It's okay to change things and not be afraid to not do the same thing over and over again. So just because you're taught to, let's say, for example, to live in one place, you grow up in one place, and you decide that you want to move away and experience life, there's nothing wrong with that. You should always be brave enough to do that.
How did your parents discipline you?
Well, we got yelled at. We got spanked. We got grounded. But after everything was said and done, they always made sure we remembered how much they loved us.
How do you discipline your children?
My children have been pretty blessed. But I also have, when I have to discipline my kids, I do. I can give them timeouts. I can take certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Privileges. Yes, thank you. See? Certain privileges away from them. For example, if I happen to be a mom of 4 boys who love the Xbox. So if for any reason their grades have dropped or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I have been known to take away their phone and to take away their gaming privileges, sometimes for a long time.
It says, who did you want to be before you had children? Like, what type of person did you want to be?
Before I had kids, I thought that I was going to be a very famous singer or actress. I wanted to move away to New York and study over there. But it's okay.
What's an important piece of advice you would give to someone based on your experience as a parent? I'll get him in there because,
Based on my experience as a parent, well, as a parent, if you are a parent, always just love your kids unconditionally no matter what they go through, and remember that we were once kids, and so we can't be as hard on them as other people.
My grandfather was a pastor. Up until the day he died, he was 96 when he died. He was a pastor since he was 20 years old, so that's 76 years. So we all grew up in the church. I sang in the church. My dad played in the church, so did my uncles and aunts. So yeah, it was pretty much life.
Are there any values that your parents taught you that you wouldn't want to teach your children? This could be like good or bad things, like that you just, maybe it's different than what you've been taught.
I think I'm gonna go with the change thing. Change is good no matter what. Like, you don't have to stick in your situation just because people tell you to. Like, my parents got divorced when I was a teenager, and they said they only stuck together because of kids. You shouldn't do that. So I would always teach my kids, just be happy, and if you're unhappy, then
Don't
fix
stick
it.
in that situation.
Yep, then fix it. Just, it's okay to make a change. Don't worry about nobody else.
How did your parents discipline you?
Oh, I got my butt whooped. Pretty good. I got grounded, but I deserved it, so it's not like I got hit for no reason. So, back then those were the methods. You either you got a whooping or you get grounded, but it just depended on what you did. So if you did something bad enough to get a whooping, you're gonna get a whooping. So, but like I said, I deserved what I got. So it's not like they were just beating on me for no reason. So whatever I got, I deserved it.
So on the other hand, how do you discipline your children?
We just my wife and I, if they need to be scolded, we scold them. If we need to, put them in the timeout, we'll do that too. They're good kids though, so we rarely have to do that. But when they're out of line, we have no problem checking them and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So, who did you want to be before you had children?
Me,
what type of person?
I always thought I would be this famous musician or a basketball player of some sort. I used to play basketball or soccer, basically sports or music. I thought I would do something big with those, which I'm still kind of following the music thing now. But hey, it's some things just never change. So.
What's an important piece of advice you would give to someone based on your experience as a parent?
Just to be patient with your kids. You always got to remember you were in their shoes at one time, and you were probably annoying them like they annoy you. But you just got to remember that you just have to go along with the punches. You can't just blow up on them and not really think about where they're coming from. A lot of parents just fly off the deep end, because they're just like, oh man, why are they bugging me so much? But you got to think, oh man, I probably did that to my parents too. So once you put yourself in their shoes, you tend to give them more of a benefit, for things.
So on that note, how was it growing up in a Hispanic household?
Oh, Hispanic household. Well, I'm Mexican American. I'm a third generation. My grandfather was from Mexico. My dad was born here, and so was I. So, being that, it was fun. We'd be in a church.
Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Kelly Chesser. I'm 46 years old from Grand Ledge, Michigan.
Can you tell me about your childhood? How was it?
My childhood was I was raised in a single parent family home in Vernon, Michigan, which is a rural farming community. I graduated from Corona, and I would say that my childhood was very simplistic and family oriented.
What are some values you would say your parent has taught you?
I would say that my mother and my family instilled in me was, number one, family is extremely important. Number two, she would have said that I was raised in a Christ-fearing home, so to speak. I was raised Catholic. Today I would say I am non-denominational Christian. That working hard reaps its rewards, and basically to treat other people the way you want to be treated and give people love and consideration.
What are some values you have taught or would like to keep teaching your children?
I would like to teach my children or keep teaching my children that kindness is very important. Compassion for one another is very important. That your integrity, that your word holds a high value over money or, I guess, monetary, tangible things. That's about it.
What are some things you learned from your parents that you don't want me and my brothers to learn?
Well, I had two very opposite parents. One was very honest, full of integrity, hardworking. The other one I would say was the complete opposite of that. And that parent was not a healthy parent at all. And so for that, I would say that I would not want those values passed on to my children. being dishonest, taking advantage of other people, and not having respect for the law is definitely something that I would not want passed on to my children.
What are some ways your parent disciplined you?
Well, the first and foremost way of discipline was the good old-fashioned grounding. I seemed to get grounded a lot and for long periods of time. When I was a child, punishment such as being spanked with a belt or a firm spanking was very commonplace, and that is not the case today.
Was religion a big part of your childhood, and if so, why?
Yes, religion was a big part of my childhood. On my mom's side of the family, their whole family was Catholic. All of the cousins, families, extended family were Catholic. From the time I can remember, I went to church weekly with my mother. Saturday Mass is what it was called. And from kindergarten through my senior year, I went to what was considered catechism school for religious education.
How did/do you discipline your children?
Beatings. Just kidding. No, when they were younger, grounding, taking things away like TV or sending them to their room. Today, much form of cruel punishment is Wi-Fi control and cellular exploitation. No cell phone.
My parents were divorced when I was young. So, separate families. I lived with my dad only on other weekends. Money was always tight. My parents weren't very strict.
What were like some morals that they taught you from an early age?
They taught me to never lie, never cheat, always do what you think is right, but also like defend yourself. Like, don't take nobody. I don't know.
Was religion like a very, very big part of your childhood?
No, my parents weren't religious at all.
Were
occasionally with my grandparents.
Were either of your parents raised religiously?
I don't think so. I mean, my mom maybe, but my dad definitely not.
Thank you for your interview.